Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Giridhari and here we're talking about the 3T path, the path of yoga, and how to better understand it and apply it to our lives. And today I want to talk to you about a very important yoga term, Ahankara. Really important in terms of like understanding who you are, what's going on. Very important point, Ahankara. Ahankara is translated as false ego. Why false ego? Well, ego is the Greek word for I, for me, right? So who am I? That's so that's ego in that classic sense, I. False ego, the false I, the false identification you have with who you are, the false understanding of who you really are. So what's that all about? Well, let's take a step back. In yoga, in the Bhagavad Gita, you can see this. In yoga, the idea, in Indic philosophy in general, the idea is that the soul, you and I are the soul, thinking this, this is talking and listening here. The soul, while incarnated, is trapped in matter. But it's trapped in matter in two separate ways. We often divide matter into two separate categories. We call it subtle matter and gross matter. Not gross as in disgusting, but gross as in, as in solid, as in bigger, as in perceivable. So you have gross matter and you have subtle matter. So the idea is that gross matter is those famous 5 elements. You have you have earth, water, fire. You have earth, water, air, fire, and they call it ether, like space. So you have the solid stuff. So this, the stuff you can measure. Even ether is like, vacuum. It's like, oh, there's nothing there. But yeah, you can still measure it though. So you're like, oh, there's like nothing between this planet and that planet. It's just a vacuum. Yeah, but you can still measure it. So there's something there. So you can measure it. So these are the things you can measure, you can touch, you can feel, you can see, right? These five they call it the Mahabhuta. So you have these 5 solid things. And then you have 3 other not solid things, not measurable things at all. These you can't measure at all. And they are mind, intelligence, and Ahankara, false ego, the topic of today's class. False ego. These 3 things. And it goes from the most, the most gross, the most easy, like, earth, solid is like earth, you can totally see it, all the way to false ego, the least of them all. So of these 3, so we have what we call a subtle body made of these 3, and this gross, the body that medicine takes care of. You go to the doctor and he takes care of this body made of the 5 gross elements. Okay, so of these 3 subtle elements, which are your subtle bodies, so you have ghosts. That's why in yoga you have to understand you have ghosts, because the subtle body can come out and the physical body can die, but the subtle body goes on, because the soul is never freed from one of these 2. The soul can be freed of the physical body and be trapped in a subtle body, but it can never be freed of the subtle body until it goes back home, back to God, until it achieves full spiritual liberation, kaivalya. So, in this subtle body, you have mind, intelligence, that makes you think and plan and perceive things. But then you have Ahankara. This is the key point. You have this thing called Ahankara. It's a material element which traps the soul. That's why the video is dramatically called the downfall of the soul, because this is what gets you. This Ahankara is the downfall of the soul, because this is what attaches you to an identification in matter. That's what Ahankara is. It's your identification with it. So like right now, my Ahankara is like, I'll be like, oh yeah, I'm a male, I happen to be Brazilian. So so I'm male, Brazilian, middle-aged. So this is my Ahankara. This is my false identification. I identify, with this physical body, the place of birth and its attributes, etc. So that's not really who I am, though, is it? Because 100 years ago I wasn't this, and 100 years from now I don't think I'm going to be this. So, this isn't really who I am. This is the body I'm in. yoga will teach me. The body I am in is defined by these characteristics, but it's not really me. So as I identify with this matter, then I forget my true spiritual identity. And then I get caught up with everything else. It starts with the false ego, Ahankara, and then because you're identified with that material bodily conception, then your intelligence starts acting accordingly to this identification. And then your plans are all mundane, then your mind is fixed in mundane objectives because your intelligence made these plans, and then your body follows suit. Do you see? And then the soul is trapped. We're an illusion, in Maya. We're living a lie. And then you're just trapped, you're in completely mundane, and you're just accumulating karma, and then you die with other thoughts, and then boom, you get stuck in another body with another Ahankara. So now I'm a dog, now I'm a tree, now I'm a woman, now I'm a demigod, whatever. And then you identify with that form. And then you do everything according to that identification, Ahankara, your false ego, your false self. So the whole point, like you'll see this in Bhagavad Gita, you see like what you have to do is to go beyond Ahankara. That's why the first instruction in the Bhagavad Gita is you're not your body. It's the first thing. Krishna spends 11 verses like, okay, let's get started here, and this is what I'm going to tell you. So the first thing he does is just lay it out to Arjuna. Look, you're not your body. And he just says it in all these different ways and gives good arguments and comparisons and metaphors. Just understand you're not your body. Because once you start breaking down this false ego, this false identification, you start weakening the bondage of Ahankara. And once you do that, then you can say, wait a second, if I'm not, like a Brazilian male, middle-aged, then who am I? And it's like, okay, now you're starting your spiritual life. Congratulations. Who am I? And then you start asking who you really are. And wait, but where have I come from and where am I going? And that's where spiritual life starts, because you start breaking down Ahankara. So Ahankara traps you in the material world, and breaking it down liberates you. And how do you break it down? By cultivating knowledge. Videos like this channel, that's why you have to subscribe. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you can get more of this information to become liberated. And so you like and subscribe. No, I'm kidding. But you study, you read, you cultivate knowledge. And by cultivating knowledge of who you really are, you start experiencing who you really are. Then your intelligence starts planning differently. That's what happens in yoga. Once you understand that you are actually an eternal loving soul, you're a transcendental being, not of this universe, then you start planning and living your life and interpreting life according to that lens. And then everything starts changing. Your priorities change, the way you behave change, you feel different. All these transformations start happening because you're changing the identity. It's very, very deep, very interesting, this concept of like how when you change your identity, everything else starts changing, because everything you do, you think, your intelligence in your mind, using the yoga language, intelligence and mind, they're working according to your identity. So if you change your identity, everything else changes too. Anyway, so let's see if this was clear enough. If not, leave your questions below. I always love hearing from you. Leave your questions. I'd like to know what you're thinking. And help me out, share this video. Make sure you like and subscribe. Really need help to get the channel going. I always appreciate your help very much. So thank you very much. Have a great day with lots of peace and lots of love.